Long before I was a tech journalist, I covered business and finance, and we'd often talk about what it means when there's an information imbalance. That's when one side of a relationship has much better information than the other, like when a seller knows more about a product's quality than a buyer. It's among the hardest things about reporting on AI. There's almost always an information imbalance. It's how I came to spend so much time thinking about trust that I named a show after it, In Machines We Trust. Now, perhaps ironically in hindsight, I had a pretty deep conversation on stage about exactly this at a big tech conference with the founder of what was then one of the hottest AI startups around, Builder.AI. I'm Jennifer Strong, and this is Shift.
Now here on the steering column is a device called Auto Cruise. You simply set the speed you want.
Self-driving robo-taxis are already on the road in 2 US cities.
As the disk rotates, a mirror reflects the light in the way that depends on how the signal was recorded.
This is the 100 terabyte. I present to you Electro, the Moto Man.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I would say that one of my greatest skills is my ability to interact with humans.
This episode, we dig into what happened at Builder.AI with tech journalist Varsha Bansal. Harness the power of AI agents at scale, without vendor limitations. The agency, spelled AGNTCY, is the open-source collective building the Internet of Agents to enable seamless agent-to-agent collaboration. Explore use cases on agency.org now. That's agntcy.org.
From Zuckerman Spader. For 5 decades, Zuckerman Spader has been a leading litigation firm trusted by in-house and outside counsel, businesses, and individuals. With offices in Washington, Baltimore, New York, and Tampa, Zuckerman Spader serves clients throughout the country and around the world in high-stakes disputes, enforcement matters, investigations, and at trial. When the lawyer you choose matters most. Online at Zuckerman.com.
Hi, Jennifer. My name is Varsha Bansal. I'm a tech reporter currently based in DC.
Now, you wrote about the implosion of one of the world's hottest tech startups. Before, though, we get into what actually happened to this company, why don't we start with explaining what, at least in theory, what the company was supposed to be about?
Yeah, so many years ago, Sachin Dev Dugal, he's a serial entrepreneur based in the UK. And he and his friend came up with this idea that why does it need to be so difficult to build apps? And what they can do is create these like building blocks, which are reusable blocks of code. You do that and you bring in AI, and a combination of that will ensure that you have an app ready sometimes within weeks or days. So that's really how it started, where the combination of these reusable codes and AI would bring something together fairly quickly, and you wouldn't really require like a tech team or engineers to be able to do it. So if I have an idea, I could go to Builder.ai and they would sort of do all of this for me. And that's how it worked in theory.
And then in practice, what went wrong?
I think in practice, there's a lot more nuance here, because when the story of Builder.ai came out, a lot of articles were written about how the AI was actually just 700 engineers behind, in like a back office, which is not really true. There was a lot more nuance here. So one is that when they claimed that they were using AI, the actual usage of AI was not as much as they sort of, perceived it to be for the investors or for their clients. And the whole concept of the builder blocks, the reusable codes, they weren't actually as many codes of block that they could use that frequently. So what happened is they had this whole business model of capacity partners, which is nothing but coders that they could outsource their work to. So when a customer would come in, the reusable codes were not as much and the AI usage wasn't as much, and majority of the work was still being done by these coders who the work was being outsourced to. And that's where a lot of the delays started happening. A lot of customers started complaining and things started to unravel from there.
It was a mix when the story first broke of people just simply, asking, is it even an AI company at all? And, maybe some reporters feeling rather burned. Covering AI is challenging for so many reasons, but it's very hard to really get to the bottom of how much is hype and how much is real. So what did you learn in the process of digging around?
AI right now is so mainstream thanks to ChatGPT that everyone knows what a chatbot is, what is an AI, or at least there is an understanding, mainstream understanding of what it is. But when the company started, there wasn't really as much of an understanding. And at that point, they spoke about building these apps so quickly. So it seemed like a great idea in theory. And no one really sort of questioned what's happening in the background. And Sachin Dev Duggal, the founder, and also he called himself the chief wizard of the company. He was a great marketer. So he just went to all these conferences and interviews and spoke about the potential possibilities of what it is. So one thing is that the founders had a lot of different ways of exaggerating the company's capabilities to raise money or to get people interested or customers interested. So I think there was a lot of marketing happening. That was one thing. And the second was this whole business model, which they were clear about. And they did mention on their website that it's a combination of AI and humans. But I feel like the human element was they made it seem like it's not as much as it actually was. So I think that was another problem where they exaggerated the AI capabilities and undersold the human element. The other aspect is that I noticed every year or like very frequently they changed the way they describe themselves. So they started by calling themselves like an AI low code, no code platform, and then eventually changed it to something else. And then I think in 2023, when they got the Microsoft funding and the Qatar Investment Authority funding, the name changed to Composable Software Platform. So I think they were also just like figuring it out as they go.
In the end, what do you think this means? Like, I feel like on the one hand, we have so many conversations about AI washing. We wait for, this sort of thing to happen because it feels inevitable. But what do you think the takeaways from all of this will be for journalists, for investors?
Yeah, so I think one of the first instances of, questions around builders' capable AI capabilities came about in 2019 when Wall Street Journal wrote like this investigative piece on how a lot of companies are positioning their AI capabilities, but it's not actually what they're claiming to be. And that was the first time it happened with Builder.AI as well. It was mentioned, and they cited one of the employees who filed a case against Builder.AI again in 2019, saying that he was unfairly fired for talking about how Builder is exaggerating its AI sort of usage to get money. And then after that, not much was really said, and Builder continued to raise money. So that was really interesting. And it's only because of the financial irregularities is why Builder came back to, the fore, and reporters they started digging into it a lot more. And that is how a lot of the stuff was revealed. It might not have been like a blatant AI washing, but it was AI washing in a lot of ways because they exaggerated their capabilities of using AI. They made it, a lot of the users who would go in would actually think that because most websites that say AI low code or no code, you go onto the website and you drag and drop and you have the building blocks and you sort of build it yourself with AI in the backdrop. That is what most people thought this is going to be, but that was not the case. As a user, if I go in, I have an app idea. They're still taking months, several months for it to come to fruition. And a lot of the times, it's not even the product people expected. So it is AI washing in a lot of ways. I think one major takeaway is to really understand. I mean, there has to be a lot more due diligence that needs to be done. That's what a lot of the investors told me that when it comes to AI investment, because with investors, there is a lot of herd mentality that comes in. So if there is FOMO investing that comes in. So if you see a lot of money going into AI companies, you want to invest in the same sort of segment. So I think a lot more due diligence, not just at the beginning, but after investment. I think that's one main thing that needs to happen. And as founders, it was, I think, very easy for them to just be like, okay, let's put AI on everything and we will get the money. And that's really what happened. So I think due diligence is a big big role, and like being more careful about the investments rather than just like going with the herd and deciding that, okay, AI is the next big thing and let's just invest in AI. So I think understanding more the quality or like the credibility of the product versus, what the market is really looking at, I think that balance needs to be struck a lot more.
I think there was a feeling of safety too, especially after the Microsoft investment. Speaking for myself, if you're about to go on stage with the founder and you have a lot of questions that don't really feel like they're being fully answered, but you're looking at this and saying, okay, well, Microsoft wouldn't put money behind something that was smoke and mirrors, but apparently it can happen.
Yeah, exactly. And even with the Microsoft deal, the big name has come in, but there again, there are lots of nuances with the partnership. It was more like a partnership that happened between Microsoft. We're not even sure how much money that was put in by Microsoft into Builder. And they, I think, had a lot of exchange with how AI is going to be used or how cloud is going to be used. So we just read the word Microsoft. We don't know what the nuances are of their partnership. But yeah, as you said rightly, that when you have a big name attached to a company, it adds so much credibility that you sort of overlook anything that might seem fishy.
So where are things at this point?
So I think the things started unraveling last year and more early this year. And one of the main things that led to the unraveling more than the AI aspect was their financial dubious transactions financially. So they overstated their sales despite raising a lot of money from Qatar Investment Authority in 2023. They ended up taking a loan in 2024. And that was, I think, one of the big, sort of issues. And the loan was taken based off of the sales they inflated. And when the real sale numbers came in this year, so Viola Credit, one of the major creditors that had loaned them money, froze the cash and Builder.AI went bankrupt overnight. And that's really what happened. And that's what led to the unraveling. And in May, the new CEO, because Sachin Devdugal was replaced as the CEO earlier this year because of a lot of issues. So the new CEO had a town hall and announced to all its employees that the company doesn't have money anymore and they're going to be shutting down. So they filed bankruptcy in June. And at this point, I think that all the employees are just looking for other jobs. They were all in shock that the company basically let them go overnight. And they all expected the company to have money, which turns out it wasn't true.
Harness the power of AI agents at scale without vendor limitations. As an open source collective, the agency, spelled AGNTCY, is building the Internet of Agents to enable seamless agent-to-agent collaboration. For business leaders, this means faster innovation and scalable solutions tailored to the multi-agent software your enterprise is creating. Visit agency.org to explore use cases now. That's agnTCY.org. So, is this more or less the end of the story, do you think? And if not, what are you going to be watching for next?
I think this is the end for Builder. I'm not sure if this is how it ends for the founder. I feel like he has been a serial entrepreneur. He's been launching startups since he was in his teens or slightly older than that. We'll see what's next for the founder more than the company, I think. He might come up with something new, again with AI or something else.
Is there anything else about the story we haven't really dug into, like something that'll stick with you from this reporting?
I think what was interesting to me was that, a lot of the times the founder makes all these decisions and exaggerates capabilities of the product or the company and gets the money. But it's the employees who end up suffering in this case because it was both the clients and the employees. And I spoke to so many of them. They seemed more honest about what they were trying to do, and they were disappointed with how things turned out for the company. So I think that's what was really sort of something that stood out to me because Sachin built this image for the industry, for the investors, and even for the employees. They would have a lot of these offsites in, like Vietnam and Singapore, and that would be lavish. They would have it in these 5-star hotels, and the vision was really big. And it would, there was a vision that he built saying that at one point, if they reach their peak capabilities, they would be building 77 apps in a day or something. So Yeah, I think for me, the most interesting part was the vision that he built, and it really did not match the reality. And the employees worked under the assumption that this is what they're working on and this is what they're going to achieve eventually. But that didn't really materialize.
And that's got to be really hard. They're working at one of the world's hottest startups. And so clearly to be proud of the work that you're trying to do and the place that you're doing it, but also to believe that, when you're an employee at one of these startups, you might have options or there might be a financial payoff at the end of this rainbow as well. And to go from that high to the low of losing your job, and also with the way in which it unraveled, your next job interview is going to have you probably saying, yes, I worked for this startup that just imploded in a very public way.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because the more I spoke to them, I realized they were all really concerned about what the next job would be and how they would have to, justify them working at Builder.AI, and would that make their credibility go down. And one of the employees I spoke to was like, "You're the first person really listening to and trying to understand what I'm saying, because almost everybody reaches out to me just to like get the gossip of what happened within Builder.AI." And he was kind of exhausted by that. So, yeah, there is a real impact on, you know, real lives here, because they're so focused on building something, and also on the clients because they think they don't have the budgets, and they come in here thinking because the company said they're going to build something faster and cheaper. So, yeah, of course, companies with smaller budgets are going here, and then they lose their money and they waste their time, and they're sort of lost with the kind of product they want to build because they don't actually get what they wanted to. So yeah, it's a loss on both ends.
And a reminder back to those of us who dig around to find these stories and tell these stories that we already know that a lot of the story is with who uses the product and how, and who's building the product and why. And that's more about the employees and less about these very senior executives or founders a good deal of the time, but certainly makes that pretty apparent, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And just as I was speaking to you, I looked up my Instagram. So I go to Sachin Devdugal's Instagram, and on May 14th, which is just a week before everything imploded, he's posted this thing that says he is ready to book one-on-one sessions for people so that he can help people navigate the wild world of startups and AI. And he's positioned himself as someone who built Builder.ai and raised $450 million. So I think he was a marketer, and he will continue to be a marketer and market himself as this guy who built Builder.ai, raised all of this money. And that's interesting to me.
This episode was produced by me and Emma Cillekens and mixed by Garret Lang, with original music from him and Jacob Gorski. Thanks for listening. I'm Jennifer Strong. AI agent collaboration isn't all that easy for enterprises. As an open source collective, the agency, spelled AGNTCY, is building the Internet of Agents, a shared collaboration layer where AI agents can discover, communicate, and collaborate. To learn from AI innovators such as Cisco, Crew AI, LangChain, and MongoDB, visit agency.org and explore use cases now. That's agntcy.org.